On today's episode of the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast, we're going to kind of dive more into WiRES-X. This week, we're going to talk a little bit about understanding the SCU kits and what's in them and why you kind of got to use them, and two common things that will pop up on your WiRES-X software because of some things that maybe aren't done or the computer just doesn't want to play well with others. That's for today, Friday, August 1st, on the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast. And welcome, everybody, to the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast. I'm your host, John Crook. Thank you for tuning into today's podcast. And as we talked about last week's kind of podcast, we delved into some things about WiRES-X. And, of course, always it seems like we do a podcast, people listen to it, they're like, oh, wow, great topic, great questions, great answers, and now I have more questions, and that's not uncommon. And we understand that. And that's kind of the fun part about doing the podcast. It is a way for us to offer some education. Well, this week's podcast is going to be no different. And what was asked for this week's podcast is saying, John, you talked about HRI 200, you talked about PDN. Let's talk about the cables a little bit more. What do I need? Do I need all the cables that are in there? And we said, well, that's a great question. And then we also had some questions come in about the dreaded no audio device found. And, hey, I can't get the DTMF boxes to open up so I can enter the DTMF node and room IDs into the WiRES-X software. So we thought, you know what? That's going to be great for today's episode, and it being August 1st here. We're part of the way through summer, so people are starting to get things all settled in, and so great bunch of topics is what we have a feeling for today here that you're going to like. But before we do that, let's go ahead and dive into one of the things that we always go ahead and talk about, and is where can I get more information about the stuff we're going to talk about today? Where can I get more information about Yaesu products in general? And that answer is the new and redesigned Yaesu.com website. That's right, the new and redesigned Yaesu.com website. And once again, as we've talked about, it's not just amateur radio. It's aviation radio. It's marine radio. It's not only the North America market, but it's the international markets also. So therefore, man, I'll tell you what, this is a wealth of knowledge. You can go into the amateur section, go and find current production models of handhelds, mobiles, HF rigs, rotators, repeaters, and even the legacy section. Let's say you have some of that great Yaesu equipment that's no longer in production or was from days past, and you need to try to find some of that information available. Check out the legacy products section on the Yaesu.com website. I guarantee they're going to have what you need to know. Alrighty, so let's just dive right into it here, and I think this is going to be one that a lot of people really want to watch to understand what they need. And the reason I say what they need is because, as we talked about PDN, there's PDN mode, which is that general encompassing term, PDN, right? Personal digital node. And it's designed, once again, to be using handhelds or mobiles without the HRI 200 for your need. Now, can it be used to host a node in the area? Yeah, you can. I do it at my house here, or I do it like when we go on trips or shows or whatever, right? Okay, you can do that there. But it really was designed to be an access to WiRES-X for you, okay? That's why you can have it in direct mode, which is just using the speaker, the microphone, or the radio, or the mobile, or you can have it in access point mode, which is taking that device and then using another fusion radio to talk to that device or that node setup. So within that, though, under PDN, you have PDN, which allows you to connect from your node in a digital mode, voice mode, we should say, to other digital-only voice modes and nodes. But there's the HRI mode, not to be confused with the HRI 200, and that HRI aspect on there allows you to connect your node to digital and digital analog rooms. So those mixed mode rooms that have analog and digital users or digital only users on there. So you can connect in that regards on there. So that's why there's two different types of modes underneath there. However, the cabling kit has it will give you all the cables, whether you want to do a PDN or HRI mode. Gives you all those cables. You're not going to necessarily need to use all those cables, depending on which mode you use. So PDN is going to use one cable where HRI is going to use all the cables. But, I have to stress this enough. If you don't use the right cables in certain rooms and certain situations, you're going to be upsetting other users on there because it's bad practice because they're not going to hear you. So that's why let's jump into it. And let's first start off with the PDN cabling kit noted as the SCU57. Now, the SCU57 is the kit. That kit contains an SCU55 cable that has the USB-A on the one end that plugs into your computer, and then the other kind of data connector, we'll call it, that plugs into the handheld radio only. Once again, the 57 kit is for handhelds only. Now, that SCU55 kit is that USB cable in there. However, in addition, in the 57 kit, you have a CT44 adapter. That is the single prong, we'll call it, okay, single 3.5 millimeter jack that not only carries speaker and microphone in one, but that then does that little dongle that breaks it out to a separate speaker and a separate microphone type plug on there. So keep that in mind. That's what that little adapter is there for. Now, on that CT44, you're going to have one port, which is going to be 3.5 millimeter, and another port, which is going to be 2.5 millimeter. Now, those are for audio inputs, because also what comes in that kit is it comes in a black audio cable and a gray audio cable. Now, the main portion of the cable is black, but the plastic part around the tips, one is going to be black, one is going to be gray. Now, as you notice, on that cabling kit, you're going to have one of the cabling sides on, or of the two cables, let's say, one side for both cables is going to be 3.5 millimeters. Of the one cable, the other is going to be 2.5 millimeter, and the other cable is going to be another 3.5 millimeter. Now, that sounds really confusing, John. What do you mean? Well, the 2.5 and 3.5 millimeters are going to go into that CT44, and then the other end of those cables, both being 3.5 millimeters, are going to go into your sound card on your computer, your laptop, whatever the case may be. Now, with that being said, and that understanding, you need to use the SCU55, so the USB cable, and the full audio cable set when you are going in HRI mode to another room that is mixed mode. And here's what you got to kind of think of it. So here you have your handheld radio. That handheld radio then has two cables coming out of it. The USB type cable going into your computer and the USB port, and then those audio cables. When you're in a PDN digital only room, you only need the USB cable because the USB audio, or excuse me, digital audio only runs on the USB cable. So digital audio only runs on the USB cable. However, when you go into these mixed mode rooms, what ends up happening is that the digital audio goes down the USB cable, but the analog audio is going to go down that CT44 and those analog audio cables that go into the microphone and the speaker jack on your computer. So that's what carries the two audio paths. Now, once again, PDN digital only, you only need the SCU cable. But if you're going to go into a mixed mode room where there's analog and digital users, or only analog users, you need to use the other audio cabling on there. John, what happens if I don't? Well, that's a good question, and we get that a lot. What's going to happen is analog audio users, their radios are going to key up, but it's going to be dead air. Why? Well, because you don't have an analog audio path out of your radio going into the computer running the WiRES-X software. It's just not there. It's like going ahead and taking a microphone and disconnecting the microphone part, like the actual take out the microphone element, cut the cable, whatever, and then just keying your radio. It's a dead key. There's no audio going down the network. So you need to be aware of that. You need to keep that in the back of your mind. All cables need to be used when into a mixed mode or analog room, and only the SCU cable, the USB cable, we can call it even, when you're using PDN operation in a digital room only. All right, that's the SCU57 kit. Now, let's touch on the SCU58 kit. So what's the difference between the 57 and 58 kit? Well, the 58 kit is for mobile operations. And here's why. You're not going to see the same type of data port interface on a mobile as you will the handhelds. Okay, the mobiles are going to use that 10-pin mini DIN style data port connector on there. So in the SCU58 kit, what you're going to get is you're going to get an SCU56 USB cable. That's a USB plug on one end and the 10-pin mini DIN on the other end, which plugs into the mobile. Now, what you're also going to get is you're going to get, in essence, we'll call it a Y adapter audio cable. Now, the way this Y adapter audio cable works is you're going to take that Y adapter audio cable, male 10-pin, plug it into the radio. Then there's going to be a female 10-pin mini DIN on there that you're going to plug in the SCU56 USB cable into there. And then the reason it's called a Y adapter cable is because off of that, there's going to be a cable, or two cables technically, that are both 3.5 millimeters. And guess what? That's your speaker and microphone that's going to plug into your laptop. So if you vision it, this Y audio adapter cable plugs into the back of your 10-pin mini DIN radio. So like the 100, 200, 300, 400 series, 500, 510 series. Okay, that's going to plug in there. There's going to be like a little pigtail that has another 10-pin mini DIN on there that you're going to plug in the USB 10-pin mini DIN cable on there. And then that's going to go to your USB port on the computer. If you have then on that Y cable for the audio, you're going to have a 3.5 millimeter jack, two of them. One's going to go into your speaker, one's going to go into your microphone jack on your computer. So there you go. That's the audio breakout. Once again, just like handhelds, if you're only using the SCU56, the USB audio cable, and you're in a mixed mode room, you're going to have that same issue. Analog users or radios will key up, but dead carrier. That's a dead carrier. If you're in a PDN digital only room, not a worry, not a problem. Just use that USB cable on there, the SCU56 cable. Not a worry, not an issue. Okay. Now, if you're listening on to us on Podbean, on the audio broadcast, don't be afraid to head on over to the Yaesu YouTube channel. So Yaesu USA Official. And then you're going to see the pictures. We actually have pictures up if you're watching the video broadcast of this, which will make a little bit more sense on here. It's just kind of hard to kind of describe on audio what you're exactly trying to see there. So those are the two cabling kits of PDN operation. Important to know both of them on there. Don't be afraid to, kind of figure them out and stuff like that on there. Lots of times people do get confused. We do get calls on it because they'll hop rooms and they'll do those kind of things on there. And people won't be aware of it. People will be like, oh, I was in HRI mode and I just used that cable and people heard me. Right? The other digital users did in that mixed mode room, but not any of the analog users. So before we continue, got this question off last week too. John, where's WiRES-X information on the Yaesu.com website? You redesigned the website and everything. Where's that at? Well, guess what? Go on over to, once again, the Yaesu.com website, new and improved and redesigned. Go under products. When you hover your mouse over products, a little drop-down menu is going to come. All the way at the bottom, you're going to see the option category for WiRES-X Internet Linking. That's right, WiRES-X Internet Linking. You click on that, it's going to take you to the HRI 200. Click on that picture on there. And then you're going to have all the stuff that you need for the HRI 200. Manuals, files, software. The WiRES-X software is totally free. If someone tells you the WiRES-X software costs money, they are lying to you big time on there because it's free on there. Just download it. In addition, you're going to get that WiRES-X software. The current version of the time of this recording of the podcast is version 1.56. You can download it right from that website there, and you're going to be good to go on there. So head on over to the Yaesu.com website and take a look at the information that's always available there 24/7. All right, the rest of the show here, we're going to talk about two main issues we get a lot of questions on. And the first one we're going to get the answer on is this dreaded error that will sometimes pop up on your WiRES-X software screen because you might be using PDN node, which says not found the audio device for the WiRES-X use. Please check the audio device and restart the WiRES-X application. So what is that? What does that mean? Is it something that I should be afraid of? Is my WiRES-X software is there? Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is save yourself some time and headache, folks. Don't delete the WiRES-X software. We have so many people like, I got this error message, I completely removed the WiRES-X software, download it all again. No, don't do that, right? It's not a WiRES-X software issue. It's not a WiRES-X network issue. It's not anything that, in essence, you have done. What the issue is that WiRES-X is a software audio program. It really is. What does WiRES-X do? Okay, WiRES-X takes the audio that is being received by a PDN setup or an HRI 200, and then after you use the WiRES-X software to connect to a room, that software routes you to where you need to go, to that other HRI 200 room, to that other WiRES-X user, to the whatever the case may be, whatever you're connecting to. All right? That's what the WiRES-X software does. Being that it routes audio. It's an audio program. That's why if you go and start up the WiRES-X software, you're going to find on the right-hand side kind of on there, it's going to go ahead and will say number of sound devices and set voice mixer device and all that, because it's an audio program. It's looking for it. Now, when you get the message, not found the audio device for the WiRES-X use, please check the audio device and restart the WiRES-X application again, it's because your computer is not seeing something that it should act as a audio device. And this is not uncommon these days. People will run WiRES-X on Windows computers. That's what you need in a Windows computer. You do. Sorry, that's the way it is. No plans on porting it out to different OS modes or anything. But you need a Windows computer. There are some Windows computer devices that run that do not have a sound card in them, or they just have a basic routing out of speaker and microphone. But it's not enough for the computer to say, hey, use this instead. It kind of, the computer is saying, I don't have a sound card WiRES-X software, I'm sorry, that's a problem. And the WiRES-X software is saying, well, yeah, if you don't have a sound card, yeah, it's a problem. And that's when you get this error message. So here's what you need to do. You need to do one of two things on there. You need to, if your computer does have a sound card on it, alrighty, like a little audio speaker, microphone jack on there, sometimes some PCs, computers and stuff have a separate microphone from a separate speaker. Some have a joint speaker and microphone, and that's usually like a TRRS, a tip, ring, sleeve kind of setup on there. Even if one of those have it, the first thing we tell you to do, or we'll suggest to do, is to plug a 3.5 millimeter jack in there. Now, it could be from a headphone set, it could be something. Basically, what you're doing is you're kind of falsing out the computer saying, hey, there's something plugged into me. The sound card's good, and it tells the WiRES-X software we're good. Even though the WiRES-X software is not going to use that device, it's still saying, the computer is saying, hey, there's no audio device jack, so that's why the WiRES-X software will do it. Now, some people said, John, I've plugged a 3.5 millimeter jack in there. I've taken a pair of headphones plugged in there. I plugged in a desk microphone. It's not working. It's not working. It's not working. What do I need to do? Well, step 2 is going to be going and getting like one of these little devices right here. And this is nothing more than a generic USB sound fob. So there's the USB, plugs right into there, and they make them for not only USB-A connections now, but USB-C connections on there now too. And as you see, it's a little sound device. It's got a speaker and a microphone jack on there, and it has some audio controls on there. And you can get these, I've seen them as low as $3, $4 online, those kind of things like that on there. Are you going to have to mess with it? No, you're not. You're just going to simply plug it into the computer, and if that doesn't say, oh, okay, there's a sound card device, you may at that point in time need to plug something into that jack there. That usually cures this issue. Now, as it states though, you can't plug the device, you can't plug a 3.5 millimeter into the jack on the computer or use the sound fob and do it, and then just hit OK for it to work. Now, you're going to need to shut down your WiRES-X software at a minimum, Lots of times I tell people, shut down your computer completely, restart your computer from scratch, because then what will end up happening is it will say, oh, okay, hey, cool, here's the deal. I need to go ahead and now I see this new device. Oh, it's a sound card device. Once again, the PC doesn't know. The PC isn't saying, nope, this isn't a sound card device, or no, you're trying to trick me and everything like that. It's going to go ahead and saying, this is an audio thing on there. We should be good to go. Alrighty, so that's that dreaded audio thing on there. Happens a lot. Once again, don't be afraid. Don't be concerned. It happens a lot on there. So now the final thing we're going to go ahead and talk about is when you run into this issue of showing that, hey, you're at the WiRES-X activation, ID activation screen. First time you're setting up your software. Or maybe for some reason you did that whole, hey, a sound card thing, I'm going to delete the software and do it again. Or maybe you're adding another computer. Like I have my home PC at home here, but then sometimes I will take my WiRES-X node and want to take it with me. So I'm setting it up on a PC as compared to a home tower unit. And then I need to re-enter all this information on there. As you see, if you're watching online, you'll see there's that box that pops up, says WiRES-X, WiRES ID activation, actually says. And in there's a couple gray out boxes. You can't enter anything in there. And you're like, what the heck's going on? Normally, under the DTMF ID column, I should be able to enter something for node, and I should be able to enter something for room. Yes, you should. Normally, those boxes will be ungrayed, and you just enter in your node and room ID, your DTMF ID. Remember, 5 digits, and the 10,000th place is one more for the room versus the node. But if it's completely grayed out, before, once again, Chicken Little, the sky's falling, look over to the left. In that serial number box, if you're using an HRI 200, you should see the serial number. If you are using a PDN device, you should see the DPID in that serial number box. If you don't see a serial number now in that box, if you don't see the DPID for PDN usage in that box, the DTMF ID boxes completely grayed out. So what do? Well, 9 times out of 10, hands down, this is related to a driver issue. All right? When you go the first time to load the WiRES-X software, if you have an HRI 200, it's going to pop up there. It's going to say, load the HRI 200 drivers. You want to click on that box. It will tell you when to connect the HRI 200 even to your computer to install the drivers properly. If you're using a PDN, so a mobile or a handheld, you need to download the drivers for that device. So if you're using the FT5 as a PDN handheld, go to Yaesu.com website, go under amateur radio, you can go under handhelds, go under the FT5, and on the files there, you're going to see the driver that you need for your SCU kit. Okay, download that driver. If you're going to be using a mobile, same thing, get the drivers for the mobile radios. Now, the drivers are Windows 10 and Windows 11 compatible. So some people will say, hey, no, John, no, I need the Windows 10 driver, not the Windows 11. Or I need Windows 11 and not 10. No, the drivers work for both. The only difference, which we didn't mention earlier, but we will mention it here, is if you are using a Windows 11 computer and you have the old SCU 39 or 40 kit, then those cables of the SCU39 for handhelds or SCU40 kit for mobiles will not have Windows 11 compatible cables. You need to have either the SCU57 or the SCU58 kit, which is the only cable kits that are in production right now in order to be able to work on Windows 11 and Windows 10. But sometimes, and the reason this happens is sometimes Windows gets a little particular. Once again, we're looking for sound devices. So even if you downloaded the driver, make sure you download the driver first before plugging in your SCU cables with the attached device. The reason being is that you have the Windows computer looking and saying, okay, wait a minute here. This is a device. This is using an SCU cabling kit. It's going to need this type of device, okay? So that's what it's going to go ahead and do. It's going to be this type of device. It will try to install the drivers that Windows thinks it should use best. That's something above and beyond our control. So that's why we say download the drivers, install the drivers, and then once you've installed it, when you plug in your device, those drivers will become active. Now, in some cases, you may have a situation where even downloading the drivers, installing them, and then plugging in your device, it's still not showing up. If that is the case, leave your device plugged in, go to your device manager, look under either it's going to be the COM or the printer ports or USB ports. You're probably going to see a yellow triangle around that device. And what's happening is it's saying, hey, there's a device there, but it's not really the right driver. You may need to manually install the driver. The simple way to do that is wherever you downloaded that driver, you unzipped it, installed it there, note that file, then you're going to go to the device manager, double click on it to open up the properties of that USB device driver there that has the yellow triangle for your radios that you're using, and then you're going to have to go through the steps to manually install the driver. That usually goes ahead and cures those issues besides the cabling issue that I did. Then what you're going to have to do is once you get that all squared away, if it still does not show the serial number of the HRI 200 or the DPID of the PDN radio, once again, shut the software down, restart the computer, leave your devices plugged in, and make sure also, too, they're actually in WiRES-X mode, okay? Still got to remember to do that, okay? So for an example, on the mobiles for the HRI 200 or PDN operation with the HRI, you got to push and hold the DX and the GM button down while turning on the radio from an off state, or holding the DX button down while turning on the radio for the off state. That's the PDN functionality. That, you want to make sure that's happened first. Boot up your software. Then that number should auto-populate within that field. Alrighty. Well, that's today's episode of WiRES-X, the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast. Really key things, like I said, understanding what parts of the kit you got to do. We get so many people that do call in because they have that one bad user that will do this, or they themselves, unfortunately, weren't aware of it and they did themselves, and they're like, oh no, just no going forward. And then once again, those two common errors, basically no audio device found. And then what do I do when I'm trying to first time you start up your WiRES-X software, that this kind of thing happens on there. I want everybody to stay tuned because we got some more good episodes on here dealing with some of the topics of WiRES-X. So keep around, keep an eye to that. If you want to listen to our podcast, you want to know when new podcasts are released, head us up on Podbean. So Yaesu USA, that's YAESU USA.podbean.com. You can listen to all the shows there, subscribe and like. If you are not a podcast listener, you don't want to use Podbean, you can catch us also too on our YouTube channel, Yaesu USA Official, where the recorded version of this podcast is done, and you can see it on there and post it on there. So definitely take a look at these things on there. Maybe file this one down, go ahead and download it if you can, that kind of thing, to help answer those questions, and maybe you can help someone in the WiRES-X realm from here. So until then, everybody, from everybody at Yaesu, take care, stay safe, and we'll catch you on down the log.